Troup, you want to sing a campfire song?
Do we want to shrimp? Is this the SpongeBob version?
Yeah. Troup, Smooch, and the Dawgs Show. Another new episode is coming on tonight.
Yeah.
Woo.
That's right. Troup and Smooch
Yes.
with the one and only Dawgs Show.
One and only.
We're here on location, as you can see. And we are in North Georgia between Chatsworth and Ellijay tonight.
It's 19 degrees.
It's very cold. And we're you see the campfire right here. And yeah, we're having a good time and looking for Sasquatch.
Yes.
And having some good food and just hanging out in the cold North Georgia. But that doesn't stop football from happening. And of course, we did both watch Friday night.
Yes,
Georgia and Georgia Tech, and there were games Saturday as well. We're going to talk about those implications. And Georgia, this season has been a strange season.
Yes.
But it was. We understand that maybe there are no juggernauts in this 2024 season, and Georgia has their warts, and you see them from time to time. And we always say, I said this earlier today, that sometimes the style makes the fight. Right?
Oh, that's such a good point.
And Georgia can still, the culture is intact, and you saw that when you get down 17-0, and you just don't quit. You don't.
What a great point.
You don't give up.
Yeah.
Georgia with 8 overtimes doesn't blink, finds a way to win that game against Tech, and Tech just heartbroken gave Georgia their best shot, no doubt.
At halftime, Tech should have won that game. Many fans, and as a matter of fact, many fans were leaving in the third quarter of that game. But the one thing I noticed is that there was zero, and I mean zero, panic on the dog side. Now, you can say about execution or scheme or players not being where they're supposed to be. Those are all fair criticisms. But the fact of the matter is the Dogs came back down big in the fourth quarter, tied that game, sent it to overtime, and I don't know about you, but I never felt the game was in doubt when it went to overtime. There was just something about the way they responded. It was ugly, but you just knew the Dogs were going to win, and that's something that I think going into the first ever 12-team playoff, you have to celebrate, right?
You should, and it's that persistence and that refusing to die and always just moving on to the next play. And so with like 5.5 minutes to go, when Haynes King scored that touchdown that made it 27-13, I was like, okay, well, I was fine. I said, okay, we're losing this game. It happened.
Right, we accepted it. Yeah,
I really did. And but Georgia just found a way. They found a way to keep fighting. They caused a turnover. You got to have turnovers a lot of times in these games. And Dan Jackson, man, what?
Dan Jackson.
I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, that's, people say this is what college football is all about. And in a way, they're right.
Right.
That's not the path for everyone, but for some players who stick it out and just get better and better.
You mean the Stetson Bennett of the defense?
It's really true.
Yeah.
Like a Dan Jackson, and he just made big play after big play. He's been that way all year long, and we were, before the season started, we were like, okay, Dan, you may start a few games early in the season until the other young talent gets going.
Right, till the athletes are ready.
But it hasn't. He's just been that much of a advantage,
and at times he's been the best player on the field. Period.
I mean, he just makes plays, and he knows his role, and he does what he does best. And I think it's great finding players who can do what they do best and put them in that position. So Georgia found a way to win that game. I think 44-42. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was right.
That's exactly right.
2-point conversions. I really love the format and how they do the overtime
especially when you compare it to the NFL.
Yeah, it was fun. It was nerve-wracking, nuts. And
that's the word.
In a crazy week for us. We didn't do a podcast last week because it was Thanksgiving week and we were all traveling and all kind of stuff going
busy.
on.
We're crazy busy now, but this is how much we love you.
We are. We're in the wilderness now. And last night I think the feels like temperature was 19.
Yeah.
We stay in hammocks.
Right.
It's not a cabin.
This is man camping. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we were cold, but we're trying to take care of business and want to get you guys a show out. Other games took place. So Georgia really, as they say, probably stamped their their ticket into the playoffs. Whether
Yeah.
it should have a home game, win or lose against Texas
Mm-hmm.
in the SEC championship, because Texas did beat A&M,
Yeah.
and they should have a home playoff game. So
Yeah.
other games that happened, Smooch, Ohio State lost.
Yep.
Lost.
I was really surprised to hear guys that we look up to like BA and some of the Brandon Adams and some of the other guys saying what a shocker it was that Ohio State lost to Michigan. Why is it a shocker? It's been what Ryan Day does every single season. Why in the world is it a shocker? He loses to Michigan every year. Not a shocker. You knew those boys would be up, and Ohio State, Troup Brinson, similar to Georgia, has not put it together for a complete game this year. I would say Georgia has had games where they looked better, that they looked more to fulfill their potential than Ohio State has. I have not seen this. What was it? What's the stat? How many millions of dollars in Ohio State's roster? Just tens of millions. 20 million in their roster, and it has not looked like a $5 million roster so far.
Right, and we called this out early on before the season started, that Ohio State's offense was going to be the hindrance. Their offensive line and their quarterback.
And their transfer quarterback.
And when you play a team, you play a rivalry game, and you can't separate yourself offensively, it's going to be a close game. And Michigan just won a close game, so they're going to drop a little bit. We'll see how far they drop. Probably not too far, because that's just the way things are working right now.
Right.
South Carolina beat Clemson.
South Carolina looked good.
I mean, Norris. I said this during our text back and forth, that Norris Sellers is a problem.
He's a problem,
and it's not a problem. I'm really glad Georgia didn't play him this year or next year, because he is not the kind of quarterback that Georgia defends well, just because of the not because they don't have talent, but the things that they focus on and what they look to do. And a +1 quarterback just gives Georgia all kind of problems.
He's got the goods everywhere. The leadership, arm. I mean, he just looks the part. Huge difference when he's on the field for South Carolina. I was actually surprised how close the Clemson game was. I really felt South Carolina, and they finally did take over. But I was surprised it was as close as it was. South Carolina, if they sneak into the playoffs somehow, can cause some serious damage.
Yeah. Now, they probably are offensively challenged against the best teams as well, but their defense is legit. Alabama beat Auburn, and so they have an opportunity, a slight chance to sneak into the playoffs. I don't think it's going to happen.
It may come down between South Carolina and Alabama,
it may.
which I would go South Carolina, honestly, if you were to ask me.
We'll see how. That's one of the things that makes me curious about the committee, what they think about that, and because we don't really.
Well, you just insinuated the committee's thinking. So that's probably your first, second, and third mistake.
That's a problem. Another game, what was the other outcome? Tennessee beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was up early, and I was like, okay.
Right.
And Vanderbilt.
The giant killer.
Called in trouble again. I had a feeling they were going to win that game. And Tennessee righted the
Locked
ship.
it down.
And then played good football. Dylan Sampson again. Exceptional.
He did get banged up in that game. And have to come out. But, Vanderbilt took an early kickoff back, and then they took advantage of a turnover, scored 14, and then it was a long time again before they scored. Tennessee just took over.
Now, as Joe Tessitore kept repeating during every overtime, we had 8 of them, and Georgia Tech, the implications. Apparently, we feel like Georgia has stamped their ticket with that win. And so if they had lost, it could have had to put everything up in the SEC championship to make it into playoffs. Mm-hmm. And but Georgia did find a way to win that game. And so we got this week coming up, we got the SEC championship in Atlanta. And this smoke is right in my face right now.
You're getting it right now, yeah.
And Georgia has a chance to beat Texas again.
Yeah.
And in terms of styles making the fight, it looked like in the first matchup in Austin that Georgia played very well against what Texas had. And Texas has a lot of talent. Mm-hmm. Georgia has a lot of talent. But it looked like they were able to defensively, even though Stetson didn't have a great game, 3 picks. He made plays when he needed to late in that game. Carson, not Stetson. I wish it was Stetson sometimes.
Yeah, we're dreaming right now. we
that sounds funny to say,
now.
but Carson, didn't have a great game. He had 3 interceptions, I think, and wasted some early opportunities. But Texas may be that team that Georgia just is built to give trouble to.
That they just cancel out.
Because it's really a traditional type of offense, and Texas a lot of great players, but Georgia, even though they had Kristen Miller in that first matchup, and he played a great game on the defensive front, they don't have him this time, so I don't know if that's a difference maker or not. We'll see, because both of those, especially Texas, who was on the losing end, is going to try to make some adjustments based on what they saw the first time. But can they?
Right.
And what will they do?
Well, they may make an adjustment at the quarterback position. That's something that could very well happen. Now, Georgia played both quarterbacks the last time and shut Arch down.
No problem.
Just as well. Arch is not as fast and as athletic as some of these running quarterbacks.
No.
He's more athletic than Quinn Ewers, but he is not a. I would not consider him a quarterback that could make a living with his legs. He can make a play with his legs, but not running the ball. Troup, the first time they played, Georgia lived in the backfield more than any other game they've played this season. They were in the backfield the whole game. That's what Texas is going to have to figure out. I assume these receivers of theirs can get open, but they never had any time.
They didn't. I mean, and even when they did, Georgia had a plan, executed it. Showed Quinn Ewers some things that he made him think.
Yes.
It made him read and look, and he took too much time, and the Georgia defense was able to get home over and over and over again. Michael Williams and Jalen Walker look spectacular. So I think when you're on the losing end of that, you're forced to make adjustments.
And Sark's a darn good coach.
They're not coming in with the exact same game plan. They know what Georgia did, and Georgia may be the counterpuncher in this game. I don't know.
They're the underdog right now.
I would suspect that Texas is going to make adjustments and Georgia's going to see how they adjust, because you got to come into the game doing what Georgia always says. Most teams say it's not about them; it's about us.
Yeah.
And so Georgia's going to attempt to do what they do best with a game plan based on what Texas does. But there's going to be some kind of back and forth and making some adjustments. From what we saw the first time, I feel good about this game. I was worried. Me and Smooch talked early in the week. Who do you want to see, Texas or Texas A&M? Smooch was like 100% Texas A&M. They're just not as good of a team.
It's just the odds of playing a team twice. That was where it really came down to. Yeah.
And I was in my back of my mind. I was like, Texas just don't look like their talent is good, but it's just
they don't match up right against Georgia.
Maybe they will this time. We'll find out. I did want to talk about, before we got too far into this, the snap count.
Oh, this is interesting.
Which will tell you some things about Georgia and Georgia Tech, and
maybe why it was close, and maybe, like, one thing we can confirm is that Georgia actually ran a different defense for this game than they normally do.
And that'll bear itself out based on the players who played, how many snaps they played. Look at offense first. Carson Beck with 79 snaps, so that tells you 79 offensive plays for Georgia. 30 snaps for Nate Frazier and 28 for Rod Robinson. We didn't even know he was going to be ready for this game.
Right, first carry of the season.
And so he's coming back. Yeah,
that could be huge.
And so he's playing. He caught some passes out of the backfield, and they basically split the snaps there, 30-28. Cash Jones had some big plays, 22 snaps. He had some plays out of the backfield where he was catching passes.
First down receptions.
Some of those angle routes, and that kind of mitigated the pass rush coming right at Carson. And Cash Jones made some big plays. Chaz Chambliss one snap at fullback, and they used that as a decoy.
Because they've run it before with him blocking. Yep, beautifully done.
Okay, wide receiver. Arian Smith with 58. Dominic Lovett with 54. Dylan Bell with 53. Then, of course, you drop down a little bit more than that with London Humphreys with 28. And Anthony Evans with 5. Nitro Tuggle with 3. And Cole Spear got 3 snaps.
Lovett's game was all over the map.
All over the place.
He had the worst game and the best game he's ever had.
Made great catches and big play in big situations, but he also contributed to Georgia being in a tough spot in the first half. So
Arian, Dominic, catch the ball when it hits you in the hands.
Both of those guys.
When it hits you in the hands, just hold on to it.
Yeah, Arian comes out like normal, going to drop the first pass thrown him. I got some advice for Georgia. Don't throw it to Arian early. Throw it to somebody else. He's dropping those early passes like he needs to get into the game a little bit, get the juices flowing, get out of his own head.
You're right about
that. Tight end.
Okay.
You had Lawson Lucky by far and away the most snaps with 46.
Oh, that's okay.
And Oscar Depp with 31.
Interesting.
Depp played well. Jurasek with 28, and then Riddell had a snap.
Jurasek made the most of his snaps. He had another good game, made some quality catches, some good blocks.
And then on the offensive line, you had those 5 playing for the most part, but you did have Micah Morris coming in there and taking some snaps away at left guard from Dylan Fairchild. I don't know if that was some injury issues. I think it was. None of those guys are healthy.
We're hearing injury and
healthy.
sickness right now, so we don't really know, but we're hearing both.
So we heard that Monroe Freeling, who played all the offensive snaps, was he and both Fairchild were dinged up and didn't get a lot of practice
They hardly
time.
practiced at all this week, yeah.
And even Micah Morris is not back to 100% yet, so they're still dealing with those things and trying to get the best team out there and consistent. So that's what you saw there from the line. Defensive line showed Nazir Stackhouse with 58 snaps, Michael Williams with 57 snaps, Warren Brinson with 57 snaps, and then T.I.D. Dawkins with 50 snaps. Those were the top 4 getters in playing time. Then you have Xavier McLeod with 23. Gabe Harris played a good bit with 11 snaps.
Nice.
And then you got Jamal Jarrett, Jordan Hall with 8 and 7 snaps. And then somebody that I didn't see getting in there. I don't know when exactly he got in there, whether it was like you mentioned before, maybe in overtime where they had to run somebody out there. But Nnamdi Akobo.
Interesting.
Got 5 snaps.
Yeah. Hadn't heard his name this year.
Not see that coming.
Yeah.
Inside linebacker C.J. Allen got 83 snaps. Jalen Walker, 81 snaps. Smile Munden, 81 snaps. And then Raylan Wilson with only 22 snaps.
Well, it's good to see, first of all, that Smile Mondin can play 81 snaps. You know, he's been battling injuries all year. That's a really good sign going forward because he can only get better. He's a quality player. Jarrett, is it Ja?
Yes.
Yeah. Ja Jarrett got washed out several times.
Yeah.
Just looked like he was on skates from time to time.
Yep, we saw that. And Tech's offensive line played really well.
They did.
They had a great game plan. They moved people around. They pulled guards, pulled people over, and they just executed perfectly and gave Georgia's defense a tough time because Georgia's defense, Smooch, they're typically in a nickel.
Right.
When you see a lot of the star position.
Yeah.
That's that nickel back.
That's their their
Not
base.
Not against Tech. They knew that Tech was going to try to run the ball, so they ran a 3-4.
Right.
And in that kind of defensive position, you expect to be able to do one thing or another. They were willing to give up some passing attempts, some passing yardage, by playing that 3-4. But
they couldn't
stop the run.
Right, that was the whole point.
Texas put them in conflict. Tech put us in conflict over and over and over again. And just pushed Georgia around defensively. Put them in positions where they didn't have enough people, had people out of position or pulled somewhere else.
Right.
And they just had a lot of times more linemen pushing and doing their job than Georgia did.
Yeah.
And it gave us problems most of the game. Georgia did win, though, Tech fans. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Everybody that's been hating so much, they won the game. You never apologize for a win, ever. Tech came in ready. We said this game before the season could be one that snuck up on the Dogs, and we were right.
Yep, Georgia's a second half team. They prepared. They
sure won a first half team in this one.
They weren't this game 17-0 at half. But outside linebacker, you had the guys splitting it with Chaz Chambliss and Damon Wilson, 43 for Chaz, 42 snaps for Damon. They split those snaps. And defensive back, we saw Daniel Harris with 93 snaps. Dalen Everett with 93 snaps.
Okay.
Malachi Starks with 93 snaps.
All right, so those 3 never left the field.
And then you go a little bit farther down with Dan Jackson with 80.
Okay.
And then you saw KJ Bowden get the short end of the stick because not a whole lot of nickel going on.
Star position not featured in that defense.
Only
right?
31 snaps for him. Only 5 snaps for Ja'Cory Thomas. But so you saw the I guess the strategy defensively. It didn't really pan out is the way they wanted it to because Tech was still able to run the ball really well. But that was what they were planning to do or trying to do. And Tech just out-executed Georgia early.
Yeah.
And then Georgia made adjustments, but still.
Well, the one thing, Kirby looks at every aspect of every game. And the one thing that Kirby has done these last 2 weeks is he's given no one in the postseason any film to look at from the last 2 weeks. There's nothing you can look at to see how Georgia plays defense.
And you won't know. So if you're looking at, okay, well, what Georgia did against this team or that team.
Right.
Against Massachusetts or against Tech, it's a different style, different team.
Exactly.
They're running basically an option at Tech. They're doing things that put the Georgia defense. You got Buster Faulkner, who knows Georgia's defense really well, and he called a great game.
He called a great game.
And it was
Tech was superbly coached.
It's a style you don't see very often.
Right.
And so Texas more traditional style with more talent, but still Georgia's got the talent to match it with Texas. We saw it in the first matchup. It was in Austin. We'll see how it works out at the Benz.
Yeah.
This Saturday at 4 o'clock. That's the SEC championship. And regardless if Georgia wins or loses, if they win, they will have a top 4 seed, maybe a number 2 seed actually.
Wow.
And if they lose, they're predicting Georgia falls no farther than 7th.
Okay.
Have a home game against somebody like Indiana. And,
wouldn't that be fun?
We'd be happy with that. And an extra game. But what you do lose there is not a week plus to prepare or to rest and heal.
Right.
And Georgia's very banged up.
Yeah, and whereas a Tennessee, for instance, they get this next week off to rest and recover. So if you lose, the way to play the most games is to lose your conference title game and then advance through the playoffs. You play the most games that way. So Georgia is playing for the health of their team as well as an SEC championship in this game. They get out there, take care of business. That's one fewer game. They've got that extra week. And like you said, sitting at a 2 or 3 seed going into the playoff.
And so I was conflicted leading up to this, and like, what does Georgia want to do? Do they want to play in the SEC championship, or do they want to just kind of cruise in like Tennessee did, move on in and just kind of sit and watch? But I'm a Georgia fan. I want to see Georgia play football,
and we want to see them play great teams.
I want to see them play Texas again.
We're not like a Tennessee that's praying for an SMU or something like that. We actually want to play great teams. Bring on Texas again. Let's do it. Let's go.
In the offseason, we are craving football.
That's right.
Why would we want to sit and watch other teams play? Because we don't want to. We want to watch Georgia get out there and do their thing. Because you never know what's next. You never know. And we don't think that Georgia this year is the best team they've ever had.
Right.
But there's no other team really separating themselves. With Georgia's schedule, put any other team with Georgia's schedule, and you're going to see some of the same inconsistencies.
This is one of the most difficult. Yeah, one of the most difficult schedules ever.
And we haven't even hit the playoffs.
And the playoffs haven't started. When you look at Georgia's schedule at the end of the year, you will see, especially if they advance a few games into the playoffs, you will see an absolute murderer's row of elite teams that were in Georgia's path. And that's something we celebrate, unlike teams from Knoxville and Gainesville. We celebrate those types of things. Bring on the best. Let's see how we match up. But just before you write Georgia off, you might want to take a peek at the schedule. Indiana would be 0-2, 2 games into Georgia's schedule. And Georgia has had to deal with killers all year. Indiana plays Georgia's schedule. They lose by 40 opening day to Clemson, and go from there. So you want your team to play the best. You want to see the match. And the thing is, Troup, they're battle hardened. And I think it was one of the guys that we listened to today was saying that these games really do build character when you have to get it done, when the game's on the line and you're pushed against the wall. Georgia feels completely comfortable. And when the Georgia Bulldogs put those 4 fingers up in the air to start the fourth quarter, that's because they know that they've been there more times than you have, and they've got it, and you don't.
Please, that's without a doubt. And it may or may not end in a national championship this year, but it could. And it could be, like Kirby's kind of been letting you guys know, that it's not about this game or that game. It's the process of building towards where we're headed right now and being ready to play those games. And knowing about your team and knowing about your players, and I've kind of learned, especially since Georgia has won a couple national championships, and once you get over that hump, you can thirst for another one,
right?
Or you can just enjoy the journey.
That's a great point.
And enjoy playing marquee games.
Yeah.
And watching your team kind of sometimes struggle. I mean, so if you beat Tech 40-10, it feels good.
Right.
But it's not one of those games that you're going to think about. We played 8 overtimes, and we found we were dead.
Yeah.
snatched our heart back and put it back in our chest to find a way to win.
And you're going to think about Dan Jackson knocking that fumble loose for the rest of your fandom life.
And thank you, Tech, for taking it seriously. Thank you, Brent Keys, and Buster Faulkner for taking it seriously and for putting that effort out there, because it doesn't happen everywhere. A lot of teams they just don't have it. And this was a rivalry game, if nothing else, for Tech.
Right.
If Georgia didn't consider it a rivalry game, guess what? Tech did.
That's right.
And they approached it like that.
Yeah, and any other, it's very common for teams to have their bags packed by that point of the season and be ready to go. No, they had that game circled on their calendar. Their coaches said it, the players believed it, and they had been waiting for that game all year, and they played like it. It has to be disheartening because it was not enough. Tech could not have played better, and they still lost.
Yeah, that's what, and whether, like I said, whether it's a championship season for Georgia, that was a championship effort.
Right.
And no matter who the opponent is, you get put in a situation like that and you find a way to come out of it. And Georgia had the chips stacked against them. They had calls go against them. They had, despite what Tech fans say, because they're going to focus on one-sided perspective.
That's so pathetic, guys. Do better.
Georgia had calls go against them on multiple plays that would have changed the game. That's just football. And if you haven't been there recently, then you really focus on that.
Yeah.
But because it feels like I was so close, we were so close. Who's to blame? What's
to blame?
And
the refs stole it. The refs didn't steal anything. But you had it and you lost it.
The more you're in those situations, you learn not to deal with that. You learn to just you get through that, because it goes both ways all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's in your favor, sometimes it's not. You just move on, and that's what quality and elite teams, or teams that want to be elite, teams that are looking to win championships, that's what they do. Georgia's been able to do that. So many teams don't do it, and you see them over the years, they still tell you why they got beat by Georgia. It's never because Georgia just found a way and had more depth and were prepared for those situations.
Or because your best player with the game on the line fumbled the ball. That's actually what happened. The referee didn't make him fumble.
There's your point. Don't do that. Don't fumble the ball. It was not targeting.
No, it's called football. I know it's been a while since y'all played.
That's just subjective opinion, and there was no targeting on that. And even if it was targeting, you still don't have to drop the ball.
Yeah, hold on to the ball. Be a man.
And so no. Hold on to the ball. You guys have a better chance to win that game. There's always plays that make a difference, and Georgia found a way to make those plays.
That's it.
And
exactly
to keep chopping. They keep chopping, and it's the process a lot of times.
That's right.
The chopping is the process.
Oof.
The results are part of the preparation and the process of chopping. And sometimes Georgia's lost 2 games this year, so it doesn't always turn out your favor. But here we go. We're done with the regular season, and everything's in front of Georgia. They have an opportunity to go play Texas and Atlanta, and even if they don't win that game, they still have a chance. And I feel like Georgia should win that game. If they don't, then they can kind of recalibrate and see what's next.
Yeah.
But me and Smooch are sitting out here. We've been having a good week.
It's amazing out here.
We've been drinking whiskey and
a lot of that too.
Cooking on the grill.
Been doing a lot of the cooking. Yes, a lot of eating.
A little hiking, a little sightseeing. The temperatures have been really cold.
It is absolutely brutal at night. So we are each in these hammocks that are kind of wrapped up in blankets and all kinds of things. But if you want to see nature in all its fury, this is where you got to go. So.
That's right. We have a good time doing this. We've had a few over the years on location podcasts. If you're new to the show, you maybe haven't seen them, you can always take a look at us at the Dawgs Show Pod. Some of them a lot of those on YouTube. Some of those in the early years maybe not be on YouTube. But
that's right.
We have the audio though in our catalog.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple Pod, or iHeartRadio. All of them. We're there.
Anything else? We didn't get a show out last week just because of the holidays and the travel. But anything else you want to mention today before we close it out?
This is probably, SEC title game. You can expect, especially if things go the right way, rapid reaction on Saturday night. That'd be something great to get out, and then we'll jump right back in. It'll be time to talk playoffs.
Yep. This is a great time of the season, so if your team's involved, just relish it, enjoy it.
Yes, enjoy yourself.
It's not that serious. At least for Georgia fans, because we got back-to-back national championships.
That's right.
It's all gravy right now, and this is a team that we expect big things from. You just never know what you're going to see in terms of injury.
Yep.
And like we said, Julian Humphrey, of course, is opted out. He wasn't playing much anymore. He's going to hit the portal.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the Georgia roster and locker room's okay with that.
I think it's actually a better
what I saw.
chemistry thing. Yeah, we have seen and even talking with some of the guys on the inside, you see this relief.
Okay.
This relief that this
TikTok boys hitting the road.
yeah,
okay,
that
they're
this
okay with that.
TikTok obsessed influence kind of prima donna in their locker rooms on his way out. Talented as he is, he lost his job and he got butthurt over it.
Yeah,
And away he goes. See you later, buddy. Have fun at the next stop.
Yeah, good luck with that. Yep, that's doesn't always bode well. And Coach Smart said it. We heard that there's a lot of players out there that wish they had that decision to make
to Georgia.
Yeah, they wish they had that decision to make over again. They would stay at Georgia.
What would Jackson Meeks be doing right now if he was back at Georgia? He'd be wide receiver 1.
He would, and bide your time, get your game together, and play on a national level to compete for championships.
That's beautiful.
What we're all about. Georgia looks to be elite every year and strive to be elite. All right, we'll close this one out, folks. We're glad to bring this to you from the North Georgia mountains for Smooch Moncrief. This is Troup Brinson saying so long. We'll see you soon. This has been another edition of The Dawgs Show.
This is The Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch.
It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.